And now we are going to talk about penetration testing. And penetration testing is one of the principal testing activities that we do in the software security field. And this is something that is usually performed as a planned activity, which somebody who is a security professional is in charge of. And often in the industry, this is also known as pen testing. So that's just a shortened term. It's just slang or lingo for penetration testing and all the activities that involves. And here we come into this other terminology, which is white hat and black hat. And this is really, if you think about cowboy movies, in the cowboy movies, the good guys, they always had the white hats and the bad guys had the black hats. And that is used now in the security world to mean hackers who have good intentions and hackers who have bad intentions. Or you could say security researchers or security analysts versus the cyber criminals. And so with penetration testing, we can have white hat penetration testing, which is where it's something that was requested by the owner of a system that is being penetration tested. And then you can have black hat penetration testing, where a cyber criminal is gathering some information about a system by poking and prodding at it and seeing what they can get away with and how the system responds to different attacks. And this is really like a intelligence gathering exercise. And as a result, we have two types, which is black box and white box. So with black box, what that means is that the system that is being penetration tested is not really known. We don't know what makes it tick. We don't know how the components work. We don't know what might be exposed. And this does not mean that we're not authorized to perform the test. Sometimes it's just we are brought in to kind of kick the tires on a system. So we simulate what somebody who would be attacking the system would know, which is nothing. And so we're just presented with a software system, suppose a banking website, and we have to use our tools and techniques to try and figure out what the weaknesses might be, what the vulnerabilities might be of that system. We don't even know what it is built with, how it runs, what might be the way to get in, or even if there is one. And then with the white box approach, there is going to be more knowledge about the system. And what we try to see is whether the things that we know are actually vulnerable or are they locked down. So for example, we know it's a Drupal website, or we know it's a Rails application, and then we check for the common vulnerabilities there. And so this is something that is usually part of a legal operation. So something that we send in that could be a legitimate request, like suppose we try to get a legitimate URL, or we try to enter something into a form which is presented by the application itself. But then we have an illegal payload. So it's legal operation, illegal payload. And what that means is we're trying to find a vulnerability in something that the application presents to us. And we try to inject some commands into there, or expose some data, or trigger some vulnerability or some exploit without really having to break our own way in. We just use something that the application or the system has exposed to us, like suppose a vulnerable URL or a unsanitized form field. And we'll get into those later on when we do web application security testing. But basically, the penetration testing is just a way to, when you're outside the house, if you think of the system as being a house, a way to try and jiggle all the locks and test all the windows and see if we can get in. And this is the typical cycle of a penetration test. So first we start out with the planning, and we write down a penetration test plan. Here's the things we want to test. Here's the common vulnerabilities or specific vulnerabilities we want to try out. We form a hypothesis of what we expect to see, and then we run our scans or tests, and we see how things respond to that. And then we try and gain access based on the things that we see, like whether certain things are responding in a way that indicates a vulnerability. And then we adjust the plan and we try again. And we keep doing this until we can no longer access any vulnerabilities. And this is something, of course, in the white hat scenario where we are the good guys and we're just trying to make sure that everything is locked down as tight as possible. And now let's look at some code where we build some penetration testing functionality.